Closing in business is not an option. You are not closing the company. It's clear.
In 1999, Telecom Kenya was born with everything in its favor. It inherited the country's telecom monopoly, billions worth of infrastructure, and the full backing of the state. At that moment, Telkom wasn't just another company, it was the company. The one that controlled how Kenyans spoke to each other, how businesses operated, and how international calls moved in and out of the country. But fast forward 25 years later, the same giant is barely visible. Safaricom, once its tiny subsidiary, has become a monster worth billions of shillings. Airtel holds on as a tough challenger. Telkom, meanwhile, has stumbled from one crisis to another. Today, it controls less than 5% of the mobile market. But here's the paradox. Despite losing the fight for customers, Telkom has never been allowed to die. Its name still lingers, its tube still carry data, and its undersea cables still link Kenya to the global internet. So how did a company that began with every advantage end up fighting for its very survival? This is not just a business story, it's a story of power, politics, and survival. But before we continue, if you find this video interesting, make sure to like and subscribe for more captivating stories. In the years before mobile phones became part of daily life, there was only one way Kenyans could communicate across long distances, through landlines. And those landlines were controlled by one powerful institution, the Kenya Post and Telecommunications Corporation, known as KPTC. For decades, KPTC had total control over telephone services, mail, and even broadcasting infrastructure. If you wanted a telephone line, you had to apply, wait, and in many cases, you had to know the right people. It could take months, sometimes years, before you got connected. Owning a home telephone line was a status symbol. It meant you had connections, influence, or money. But by the late 1990s, things were changing across the world. Many countries were breaking up state monopolies, opening markets to private players, and allowing competition. Kenya followed the same path. In 1999, KPTC was split into three different organizations: the Postal Corporation of Kenya, which would handle mail, the Communications Commission of Kenya, which became the regulator, and Telecom Kenya, which was to take over the telephone and telecom services. Telecom Kenya was officially born. At its birth, Telkom inherited a vast copper wire network, thousands of employees, and all problems of the old monopoly. On paper, it was still the dominant player, but in reality, it was a giant carrying heavy debts, slow operations, and technology that belonged to the past. The debts came from years of poor management, unpaid government bills, inflated costs, and loans taken to expand a network that was already obsolete. Telkom was stepping into a new century, but it was already limping. What Telkom didn't see was that change was coming fast, change that could wipe away landlines and transform Kenya forever. In the early 2000s, Kenyans began to see something extraordinary: small mobile phones that could connect you instantly, without wires, without waiting lists, and without begging for connections. Safaricom and Kcell, later known as Celtel and eventually Airtel, had entered the market. They brought freedom. For the first time, an ordinary farmer in Eldoret could call his family in Kisumu without traveling for hours. A student in Mombasa could talk to a cousin in Nairobi instantly. Business owners could reach suppliers, traders, and customers in seconds. The effect was explosive. Within a few years, millions of Kenyans were using mobile phones. Safaricom, with its aggressive marketing and strong network, quickly became the market leader. Kcell also grew fast, though later it also struggled with the ownership changes. For Telecom Kenya, this was nothing short of disaster. Its entire business model was built on landlines, lines that people no longer wanted. Why wait for 2 years for Telkom to install a phone line in your home when you could walk into a shop, buy a SIM card, and start talking immediately? Telkom tried to fight back. It launched its own mobile service called Telkom Wireless. It hoped that its brand name and existing infrastructure would give it an edge, but it was already too late. Safaricom had captured the market, and Kcell was still miles ahead. Telkom's mobile services was low, unreliable, and failed to win the trust of customers. The company, once the undisputed king of communication in Kenya, was now falling behind day by day. Telkom knew it needed a savior, something big that could change its fortunes. And in 2007, it found one, an international giant that painted the country orange. In 2007, France Telecom, the global telecom powerhouse behind the orange brand, acquired 51% stake in Telecom Kenya. It was a bold gamble. The Kenyan government retained the rest, but the hope was clear: Orange will bring new expertise, new technology, and new energy. Almost overnight, Telecom Kenya was rebranded into Orange Kenya. Billboards went up, adverts promised faster internet and modern mobile services. For a while, there was excitement. People thought Orange would finally help Telkom fight back against Safaricom and Airtel. The French brought money and they brought experience. But the problems were deep. Telkom was drowning in debt. Its reputation was already weak. Customers had long memories of poor service, delayed connections, and endless frustrations. Even with the orange branding, people didn't trust the company. Safaricom, meanwhile, had already unleashed its most powerful weapon, M-Pesa. Launched in 2007, M-Pesa allowed people to send and receive money instantly on their phones. You didn't need a bank. You could pay bills, buy goods, or send money to your mother in the village with just a few clicks. It was revolutionary, especially in a country where many people had never used formal banking. By the time Orange tried to push internet bundles and new offers, Safaricom had already tied millions of Kenyans to its network through M-Pesa. During this period, Telecom Kenya went through leadership changes. Managers came and went, but the results stayed the same. The French gamble was supposed to be the big turnaround, but it didn't deliver. By 2015, Orange was bleeding losses and looking for an exit. When Orange left, another player entered. Not a telecom operator this time, but a private equity firm with very different intentions. In 2016, France Telecom sold its 60% stake to Helios Investment Partners, a London-based private equity firm. The Kenyan government held on to its 40%. Unlike Orange, Helios were not here to bring global telecom expertise. Helios were here as an investor, focused on restructuring, cutting costs, and finding value. Under Helios, Telkom shifted its strategy. Instead of trying to outshine Safaricom in the mobile market, it leaned into infrastructure. It invested in fiber optic networks, undersea cable partnerships, and data centers. It branded itself as the carrier of carriers, the backbone of Kenya's internet and data traffic. It still offered mobile services, but it knew it couldn't win the mobile war against Safaricom. In 2018, Mugo Kibati became CEO. He pushed to modernize Telkom and refocus its energy. Around the same time, Chris Senanu led the enterprise division, trying to strengthen Telkom's role in serving businesses and government. Leaders like Njeri Rionge, one of Africa's top women in tech, had earlier played key roles in the company's board, helping it to navigate change. But even with smart people at the top, Telkom still struggled. In 2019, Telkom made a bold announcement. It planned to merge with Airtel Kenya. Together, they could finally stand a chance against Safaricom. For months, the industry buzzed with excitement. If the merger succeeded, Kenya would have a true two-horse race. But by 2020, the deal collapsed. Regulators raised competition concerns, Airtel and Telkom could not fully agree on terms, and political interference added pressure. The merger was supposed to save Telkom, but it died before it was born. Telkom was back on its own, weaker than ever. By 2022, Helios was ready to walk away, and in one of the most dramatic twists, the Kenyan government decided to take back what it once owned. In August 2022, just 4 days before the general elections, the National Treasury quietly bought back Helios' 60% stake in Telecom Kenya for 6.09 billion Kenyan shillings. Suddenly, Telecom Kenya was once again fully owned by the Kenyan government. The official reason was clear: Telkom was a strategic asset. It provided communication for the military, police, intelligence, and the State House. Leaving it in private hands, officials argued, was a national security risk. But the timing raised questions. Why just a day before election? Why without Parliament's approval? Soon, controversies erupted. The deal became the subject of parliamentary probes. Watchdogs accused senior officials in the outgoing Uhuru Kenyatta government, including the head of public service, Joseph Kinyua, of rushing the process. Some called it a betrayal of transparency, others defended it as a patriotic move. For the first time in 2 decades, Telkom was fully back in the hands of people. But the question was, what now? The government may have taken Telkom back, but its survival depends on the future. And the future is filled with both danger and opportunity. Today, Telecom Kenya stands at a crossroads. Its history is dramatic. Born from monopoly, crushed by the mobile wave, rescued by Orange, reshaped by Helios, and reclaimed by the government. Customers still complain about slow speed, hidden charges, and poor service. On forums and social media, people share stories of frustration. Many laugh at its endless adverts that promise more than they deliver. Safaricom still rules the market, Airtel is fighting hard, and Telkom is still seen as the underdog. And yet, Telkom holds one of the most powerful cards in Kenya's digital future. Its fiber optic cables stretch across the country. Its undersea cable partnerships keep Kenya connected to the rest of the world. Its infrastructure supports governments, banks, and businesses. If managed well, Telkom could become the backbone of Kenya's digital economy. If managed poorly, it could fade into irrelevance, remembered only as a company that once ruled, then fell. Telecom Kenya's story is not just about phones or internet. It's about Kenya itself. It's about the struggle between public and private ownership. It's about corruption, politics, and power. It's about innovation, resilience, and the dreams of a country that refuses to be left behind. The next chapter of Telkom is not yet written. The question is simple but powerful. Will it rise again, or is it its best history already behind it?